I am Base Rockwell, aka Jaguar Paw. I've been a part of this scene, clubs and raves, and just partying in New York in general since 1996. I was brought in by a fellow by the name of John, who was also a very big partier, and I was raving before I ever got to my first rave, probably for a couple of years. But I've definitely been guided through my time in the scene and have gotten a lot of input from people around me who have a lot of experience and passion for the scene in general.
Cool. Which one was your first rave?
My first rave was Abracadabra.
Oh, shit, I remember
at
that.
Asbury Park. That was my first big, real rave. I had been to a couple smaller events, but Abracadabra was my first 1,000+ environment with lasers and all the things that clubs at the time didn't really provide you.
Nice. All right. And so I hear you're a DJ and you produce music now, right?
Yes.
So can you tell me something about that?
Just that I have a deep appreciation for pretty much any underground music. As a DJ, you know, it's definitely a responsibility to try to be as versatile as you can. A DJ's job is technically to cater. So it's not always so much about, you know, what you're playing, but also what you're doing with it. You know, you can cater one way or another they want to hear, or you can guide them on the sound they're going to love. You just have to be willing to work hard enough and risk as much as you can to make it happen.
Nice. So what do you think about the ravers back then? And like the clothing and the style of music back then? What are your thoughts about that?
I definitely feel that the styles of music back then were very raw, very pure. I definitely feel we live in a hybrid genre time. You know, nothing is pure per se. It's very hard to get straight techno or straight trance. You get a lot of tech house and tribal tech and a lot of combination sounds that used to be the DJ's responsibility to make happen. Because before there was tech house, you had house and you had techno. And tech house came about because DJs who like to mix would mix house and techno. And that's where you get all of these new quote-unquote genres are really subdivisions of pure musics that DJs were actually blending to make. And now I feel music to the point where you don't even have to mix genres to get a great sound.
Mm. You know? Nice. So what about the ravers? What do you think about the ravers? I know there's not too many ravers now, but the ravers back then, give us like a little pictures how they used to be, you know?
Ravers back then were, it's always been a younger crowd. And I don't really necessarily feel that the rave crowd has changed so much. They've always been young, and I've always felt that the rave scene in general gets its guidance from the people who are in charge of that scene. Mm-hmm. That's the DJs, that's the coordinators, that's the promoters. And, you know, things have changed a lot. I don't really feel necessarily that it's the crowd that's changed, just the mentalities of the people behind the business that has evolved from that.
Nice. So what do you think for now, like in the future now? What do you think about with the music? Because I see you in music, you really like music. What do you think the next sound is coming around? And
oh, well, I actually think that the whole hybrid genre thing has actually made the solid sound rather hard to get. So, whereas before, you know, back in the day, I would struggle to mix this house track with a trance track to get some tribal trance. Now that producers can so avidly produce these mixed genres, people want a little more definition in their sound. They don't want that gray area. They're actually looking for someone who can deliver pure techno and pure house and pure trance, but not necessarily all in one set. They want to see you do an hour of each to help establish the boundaries that people don't realize are even being crossed at the moment, I feel.
Wow, that's cool. And well, I've been hearing a lot of like this new sound called mashup. What do you think about that? Like mashup sound where it mix everything into one?
Definition of mashup is a DJ term. Mashups are basically what I feel DJs are not doing these days. I feel that DJs have become overly dependent on the quality of production. And with the advancement of digital technologies in the studio field, it's made records so good you don't really have to mix them for people to enjoy them. And I feel it's almost spoiled DJs in a sense, which is why we have so many DJs that play great music but can't make anything great happen with it.
Wow. So, were you a part of any crew back in the days, and history on that, if you have?
I was part of a Liquid Viscosity, which are some of the people who ushered me in to the scene. Some friends from Long Island that were amazing dancers, very unique dressers. You know, back in the day there was a lot of self in the rave scene. Ravers made their own clothes just as much as they bought them.
Yeah.
They made a lot of things, whereas now they've become, I feel, almost, they're not clubbers, so they can't buy liquor, but they've definitely gone the buy it on eBay online. They don't really search for their own uniqueness, I would say. Not as much as they used to.
Yeah, wow. Do you know, there used to be like a big party in Long Island, Caffeine, the Caffeine, you ever knew anything about that?
Yeah, I've shopped several times at Caffeine when it was open. And I'm from Brooklyn, so it took a lot of effort to get to Caffeine. But some of my friends from Liquid Viscosity, who I had out in Long Island, when I would stay out there, I would go to Caffeine to shop for records. A great shop, and some of the people associated with that definitely have a big part in what the rave scene had became at that time.
Cool. And which was your favorite party, like rave, or that was like, yo, that was the shit, back in the days?
It isn't really a favorite party per se, because I've been to some amazing ones, but I can tell you, in New York, things were predominantly run by Uptown Underground, Park Rave Madness. They threw some good parties, but I was more a fan of, say, Local 13 or Plur from New Jersey, who could coordinate just as big an event, but with a better vibe overall. There was still a bit of superficialness to New York City raves that you didn't get out of state.
Wow, that's cool.